you need me, I'll just be over here playing around in my new silhouette. It's a tradition I know many of us share. Wake up Saturday morning, make a comforting beverage of choice, and snuggle up on the couch with a furry companion to watch Rachel Maksy's latest adventure. And that's exactly what I did one fateful Saturday, and everything was going as usual when this happened.
I really like all the curls, and I think it's really giving Miss Frizzle action, and that's my long-term goal, so. A Victorian Miss Frizzle, which I would totally watch. A Victorian Miss Frizzle.
Hello friends, welcome or welcome back. I'm Shannon Makes, historically motivated costumer by day, circus artist by night, and as you've probably guessed by now, this week I'll be making a Victorian Miss Frizzle cosplay inspired by the one and only Rachel Maksy. Although, right off the bat, I admit I am going to change the design a little bit because that dress is giving me hardcore Riddler from Batman Returns vibes. Fortunately, Miss Frizzle has about a zillion different outfits. I think she wears a different one every episode or so, and some intrepid soul actually made a graphic of several of her dresses from the 4 years that the series ran, and after looking at them, I decided to go with the very first one from the episode Gets Lost in Space.
We're lost in space! We're lost in space!
Not only is it the pilot episode and one of the dresses that I actually remembered the most, but I also managed to find this absolutely amazing, genuine photo from what I have to assume is Halloween of maybe 1907 or so. I'm not sure what I love about it more. The fact that it's been colorized with basically the same exact colors as Miss Frizzle's original dress, those cute little gold foil stars which also happen to match our dress, that goofy little decoration she's got in her hand, or the look on her face. Our girl here looks like she's been sitting through the longest mansplanation ever. Now, to be fair, this is definitely skewing more Edwardian than Victorian, so Rachel, I do hope you'll forgive me. If you make a Victorian version, maybe one of her other dresses, hit me up and we can wear them together around town. So if I had to put a year on this outfit, I'd say probably 1907 or so, based on the jumper dress that she's wearing, and I actually have an entire video on the history and evolution of jumper dresses from 1907 to about 1909 or so. I'll link it up there for those of you that want to dive more into the topic, but for now I've got an image, I've got a year, and now I need a pattern. And for this one, I'll be going with the Black Snail jumper dress. I kind of figured that would give me a good starting point, and from there I can sort of modify it to more closely match Miss Frizzle's original dress. Now, I did think about drafting my own pattern for this one, since honestly it should be pretty simple, but I also had my hands full with making an entire set of historically adequate undergarments specifically for this cosplay, so I'm going to take the quick and easy way out for the main dress, use a pattern, and I'm not even gonna feel bad about it. So before I can cut this out, I need to figure out which size I am, and there is a size chart here, but the instructions that go along with it are a little bit unclear. They list the measurement based on your natural waist, but then they seem to assume that you're going to be getting 1.5 inches of waist reduction once you put on a corset. But here's the thing, I spend hours every week training. I have a whole video about testing out a sports corset that I made. I'm pretty sure there's no way I'm going to be getting any waist reduction from my corset. There's just not a whole lot of give in there, but there's only one way to be sure. So I know that this corset is butt ugly. It is just a wearable mock-up that I literally slammed together for this cosplay, but if you are interested in seeing me make a much prettier, more aesthetic version of it, be sure to subscribe because that is coming up next on the list. And just as I suspected, I have absolutely zero waist reduction, but actually it was fine because it did give me a chance to measure my hips in the corset because, I mean, let's be real, these are 100% not my actual hips. So I have my new hip measurement and now we can go see what size I'll need to cut out. So I don't fit perfectly into any of the sizes on here, but it does look like size 16 is going to be the closest. So that is what I'm going to cut out. And there are some pretty generous seam allowances already factored into the pattern. So I'm just gonna keep those and that way I can sort of reassess and tweak things once everything is all sewn together and I can actually try it on. So let's get cutting. So this pattern is kind of neat because they don't have you print off the entire skirt panel for every gore. They just have you print off the top and the bottom, and then you're supposed to split them and spread them, measure 12 inches, and then just add a chunk of paper in the middle of your own, which I think is pretty cool because it saves me time and hassle, and now my skirts have a very cool midriff section. So for fabric, I've got these thrifted bed linens. For the main jumper dress, I've got this navy blue bed sheet, and then I've got this sort of burgundy colored pillowcase for all the fun little accents, and together they cost me less than $8, which is fantastic because I am not looking to spend a fortune on this costume. Having just cut the pattern out, however, I am a little bit concerned that I might be short on fabric for the dress because there are a lot of gores in this pattern, but we're gonna deal with that when we get there. First things first, we've got to take this fabric, get it washed, get it dried and pressed, and then I'll meet you back here tomorrow to cut everything out. So I fit all of these skirt pieces onto the fabric. They are all cut out and I do have a fair amount of fabric left over, but I am still concerned nonetheless that it might not be quite enough to fit the bodice piece on here because I'm looking at the pattern piece right now and it is absolutely huge and it's only going to get bigger once I make the modifications to make it look more like the inspo image. So what I'm thinking I'm gonna do is I think I'm gonna go in, make some preliminary modifications to that pattern piece, then cut it out from some scrap fabric and try it on over my corset, play around with it, see if I'm on the right track, see if it looks good, and see if I can break it down into smaller pattern pieces that maybe are gonna fit a little bit better on the fabric that I have left over. So let's just cut right to that. So having made a mock-up in what is probably the biggest betrayal to Rachel Maksy, the patron saint of winging it, I am now slowly marking the results of the fit test onto the fabric and then cutting that apart and transferring those markings onto the paper pattern so that I can clean them up and make everything nice and symmetrical for the final version. So I have had to make some final adjustments to the pattern yesterday, mainly because I did lay it out and I'm just so tight on fabric. I even had to go in and remove the decorative stitching from the top line of the sheet, which did gain me a few extra inches, but you can also see it left some pretty permanent scarring. So I think the way I'm gonna deal with that is I'm just gonna go in and cover the worst spots with some decorative appliques in the shapes of stars and planets, and that's gonna be perfectly on theme.
Oh, good morning, class.
Then I also had to shorten the sleeves to get them to fit on my fabric, and that again is gonna actually work out pretty well because in the inspiration image she does have 3/4 length sleeves, so that was kind of serendipitous. And then the last big modification I made was I split that big long bodice pattern into 2 pieces right along the shoulder seam, and that's just gonna allow me some more flexibility in terms of how I'm laying it out on the weird offcuts of fabric that I have left. So I think I'm gonna be able to squeeze squeeze everything onto the blue sheet, just barely. It's going to be super tight, so I'm going to be really careful with my fabric placement. Then I'm also going to go in and cut out the belt from the burgundy fabric, and then we should be able to start with some assembly. Let's go. Well, we're pretty much right on track. I've got all the skirt pieces, all of the bodice pieces, the belt pieces, the leftover red burgundy fabric, and that is all that is left from the blue fabric, which is going to be just enough, I think, to do the trim and the cuffs and all those other little tiny pieces, but not a whole lot of extra left over. So, quick progress report on the skirt. I've got the first 3 gores sewn together, so the center front and then the side front on either side are all attached. Everything is sewn together. I've got these nice box pleats in here. The only thing that's missing is actually the top stitching on the outside. That's going to kind of permanently hold the box pleats down. But the thing is, I don't actually have any matching blue thread. I've got maybe white, black, and red. So I'm going to just continue working my way around the rest of the skirt to the center back, and then just save the top stitching for at some point I'm gonna have to run out and get some matching thread. But just wanted to give you guys a quick progress report because it's kind of fun to see it hanging here. It looks so good. The fabric is very easy to work with. Everything, once it's pressed, looks super crisp. So I'm very excited to keep on going. So far, so good, easy sailing. Let's keep rolling. Alright, here's where we're at so far. Still no blue thread, but check it out, we have a skirt. So it is all sewn together for the most part. I figured this would be a great time to go and try it on just to make sure it does in fact fit before I do all the top stitching and sew on the plackets and the hooks and eyes and just kind of close it up for good. So you know what that means. Back into the corset. Wow, look at that silhouette. Oh, guys, I think it's gonna look so good when it's done. I absolutely can't wait. So with the skirt on the way it's supposed to be with the closure in the back, I kind of can't tell how much too big it's gonna be. So I'm just gonna swivel it around here and put the opening in the front, and that's gonna give me a better idea of how it fits. So I think we're pretty much on track. It looks really good. It is a little bit hard to say because I just realized that actually there's a black back pleat that's gonna get added in after the placket is sewn on. So what I really should do is attach the placket and the hooks and eyes and everything and then go take that back pleat while I'm wearing it. The one thing I am kind of wondering if I need to do a bustle pad, and there is, Black Snail does have a free bustle pad pattern, so we'll see how I feel. I think it might kind of just help smooth out this silhouette, these lines here where my corset drops off. Also, having a petticoat will definitely help that, but I don't have a petticoat at the moment. So Might do a bustle pad instead. If you need me, I'll just be over here playing around in my new silhouette. So in summary, the silhouette is absolutely on point. The box pleats look gorgeous and are super fun. And I've got enough room in the waistline to go ahead and do the placket and the closures and then a box pleat. So I think the next step for the skirt is gonna be to go ahead and do the placket and then try it back on and mark the box pleat while I'm wearing it with the corset, so I'm sure that everything fits me perfectly. So next step is either going to be going and getting some blue thread so I can finish up the skirt and do the top stitching, or switch gears and start working on the bodice. I am not sure which one is going to be, but you are about to find out. As you can probably tell, I've decided to start in on the bodice, mainly because I was procrastinating it, and in an effort to just rip the band-aid off, I decided let's start in on the bodice. So far, all I've done is just to sew up the shoulder seams, because remember, we have shoulder seams now. So they are now all sewn up, and I've just remembered that I have to go in and make some new facings because the original pattern did come with facings, but I did modify the neckline fairly significantly just to try to make this look more like the original inspiration image. So now I have to go in and make new pattern pieces for the facings, and it's just gonna be way easier to do that now when I can lay this out flat and there aren't things like sleeves and pleats and all that getting in the way. Honestly, I'm quite happy that I actually remembered to do this step because it would be very on brand for me to have spaced it out and forgotten about it and then had to go in and do it later when it was just way harder. So let's go draft some facings. That's why it looks weird. All right, y'all seem to love when I make mistakes and walk you through them. So hello, we knew we couldn't make it through a sewing project without at least one mistake, and here I am, so proud of remembering to trace out the facings and throw in a line of stay stitches, and I did everything right. Except for the part where I sewed one of the front bodice pieces on completely the wrong way out, and so now I've got two lefts instead of a left and a right. So we're gonna go in and pick some stitches, and then redo the stay stitches, and then we can trace the facings. Yay! We love sewing! Having made the new facing, I continued with the main bodice, and here I'm just marking the fold lines for the pleats in basting thread because I discovered the hard way that this fabric holds onto chalk really well, and this was the best way to see my fold lines from the good side of the fabric without needing to put the whole garment through the wash before the final reveal. Well, yesterday a lot of good progress was made on the bodice, as you already saw, and everything was going really smoothly until it came time to set in the sleeves. And now I'm not somebody who normally has problems with sleeves, but there is just something about this sleeve pattern that is not working out. It's not very intuitive. The notches just aren't matching up like I feel like they should be. So instead of getting very frustrated about this, we're just going to set it off to the side, switch gears, and go get some of that blue thread that I've been needing. And the store that I'm going to go to for this is quite interesting. It's eclectic and quirky and got its whole own personality. So I thought what I would do is I would take you with me. We could go check out the store, have a little field trip in Montreal, and then deal with this when we get back. So let's go. to say is springtime in Canada, baby. Alright, so here is where I'm at so far. I took the rest of yesterday to hem the skirt, attach the plackets, sew on the hooks and eyes, and make a little bustle pad, which I am hoping is going to give that last little bit of oomph to my Edwardian silhouette. It was a free pattern, it went together really easily, it only took a couple hours or so, so let me know down in the comments below if you would like a video on this, but for now, I am going to go put this on underneath my corset, and then I can try the skirt on and mark that last box pleat, and we are closing in on the last final touches on this cosplay. So without further ado, let's go. Also, I do realize that this is the second time so far this project that I've used IKEA fabrics, a hashtag not sponsored, but also IKEA. If you'd like to start a line of historical undergarments, you know where to find me. The skirt is about 95% done. It just needs a waistband, but the bodice still needs a lot of love, and then the whole outfit needs a bit of frizzification. So I think it's time for a sewing montage. Something fun and upbeat that doesn't necessarily make it quite clear what exactly I'm doing, but is nice to look at. Editing Shannon, what do you got? Okay, that's not bad, but could we make it a bit more Maksy? There we go. Hit it. Maksy? So the outfit is finally done and I can't wait to put it on. But before we jump to the final reveal, I wanted to pop in here to remind you about the behind the seams. If you're new here, after big projects like this, I like to have a follow-up video that I call Behind the Seams, where I go a bit more in-depth about the project for those of you who want to know more about it. Often I'll go into construction details or talk about parts of the project that just didn't make it on screen in the original video, but I'll also answer your questions about the project. So if you have something you're curious about, go down and leave me a question below and I'll try and answer it in the Behind the Seams. If you enjoyed the video, consider sticking around and checking out some of my other projects. There are lots of fun videos on the channel, and if you want even more Shannon Makes, I do have a Patreon for those who'd like to support the channel and get some fun extras in the process. I also have a Ko-fi account, which happens to be where I have my online store with fun doodads like my tailoring ham and sausage kits. Okay, enough talking, let's jump to the final reveal.
Good morning, class. it's a perfect time for a field trip. Welcome to outer space, class. Well, looks like we'll just have to go back to school.
Oh, no! I don't need to prove anything. That was the most amazing field trip ever. You know it. I know it. If no one else believes me, that's their problem. Right on! Way to go, Janet.